I was around 12 to 13 years old, my best friend was the boy next door, a few years older than me. He had a twin sister, a male by the way. They had a kind of den room upstairs with his bedroom and his sister's adjoining it. It had a sofa bed and I'd stay there fairly often. My friend and I would stay up late watching TV, then both sleep in there. I nearly always enjoyed it. It was great. One night we'd gone to sleep, so to speak, like when you stay up talking and gradually the conversation peters out with bigger intervals of silence until you fall asleep. I usually fell asleep last. After it had been quiet for a while, I could hear weird noises, like a kind of whimpering or whining, sobbing, high-pitched. I was pretty sure it was coming from his sister in the room next door. Along with it was the sound of bed springs creaking rhythmically, if you know what I mean. I don't know if I imagined it, but I could hear the faintest hint of a man whispering. It really freaked me out. I asked my friend if he was awake, and he kind of just played asleep and just mumbled something, which was unusual for him. He'd usually perk up and talk to me whenever I did this. Being only 12 or 13, and a guest in his house, I didn't really feel like I could go and investigate. Eventually it stopped and I went to sleep. I never witnessed anything like that again, and we coincidentally moved away very soon after. I thought about it every now and then. I don't really want to spell out what I feared was going on. I'll say the dad was sometimes kind of a creep, and I heard stories when I was a bit older about how he'd sometimes say inappropriate things and even made a pass at someone's wife at some social event or something. Anyways, it freaked me out whenever I remembered it. I never did say anything about this, and this is the first time I've ever told anyone. I don't know what I could have possibly done. I think I was right even to think that that's not the kind of accusation you can just throw around right lightly, so I just kept it to myself. Maybe because of this, I've never been shocked by the idea of a lot of disturbing things probably happening behind closed doors in every community. A bit of context about where I live and who I am. I live in a decent, wealthy community in central New Jersey. There's very low crime rates, just the occasional petty theft. Not really any problems with kids acting out. There's always that one guy, but it's pretty few and far between. In high school, I tended to keep to myself and focused on my academics. I was the textbook example of a nerd. Took all honors and advanced classes, was part of a high school band, orchestra, jazz ensemble, and pit orchestra. I had a nice group of friends and never really ventured out of that group. I admit, back then I was extremely naive and a bit of a pushover. Freshman year started off pretty normal. My town has 2 middle schools that combine into one high school, so half of the kids I had never met before. I quickly make my group of friends, most of them being in band. We occasionally have run-ins with some of the football players, since our marching band plays at all the football games. Most of them are nice to us though, and overall appreciate that we play at all their games. One day after a game, I decided to head inside of the school to grab my book from a locker I'd forgotten to bring home earlier that weekend. All the football players had made their way inside the boys' locker room. As I was passing by it, one of the freshman players happened to be sitting leaned against a locker right outside the door. We made eye contact, and I politely smiled at him. I was a bit too friendly back then. He just stared at me blankly, not even returning the smile. I shrugged this off, figuring he was just being a jerk. Whatever. I got my book and went home. Fast forward a few weeks, I started noticing the grumpy football player a lot more than I used to. As in, I never used to see him anywhere before, but I kept seeing him everywhere now. I dismissed this as me only noticing him because my mind had equated him to be an unfriendly grump. I pointed him out to a classmate I was friendly with, who was a member of the football team as well, that I kept seeing this kid all over the place, always awkwardly staring at me and not smiling. My classmate goes, "Oh, you mean Batman? Yeah, he's weird." I asked why he called him Batman, and my friend explained to me that whenever the football team changes in the locker room, Batman never changes in front of anybody. He always goes to the handicapped bathroom stall. A bunch of guys noticed this and asked why he did it. The kid replied, "It's my Bat Cave," and well, so the name stuck. I don't remember exact timing here, but a while after that, I was at home chatting with some friends on AIM. I know, this took place around 10 years ago. Suddenly a screen name that I didn't know popped up saying hello. I asked who the person was, and it turned out to be Batman. I had a friendly chat with him for a while, mostly me answering questions about how I enjoyed band, what instruments I played, if I was planning to major in music someday, etc. I thought nothing of the encounter and carried her out in my life as normal. Soon he started messaging me every single day on AIM. Even if my away message was up and I was trying to do homework, he would just keep sending messages over and over until I responded. He eventually started asking more and more personal questions. What are you up to? Well, that seemed pretty harmless. What are you doing this weekend? It seemed pretty harmless too, especially since he was probably trying to be friends with me. Questions about my family, such as do you have any siblings, what are their names, where do you live? I didn't tell him, I just said I lived in town, obviously. Do you have a cell phone? We should talk someday on the phone. I lied to him and said I didn't. I always save these conversations every time they happened. He eventually started asking about my relationship status, which I was taken at the time. He would ask about my boyfriend, if I loved him or not, why I was with him. Then Batman would proceed to tell me that he would make a better boyfriend, rub my feet, snuggle me, buy me stuff, blah blah blah. I politely shut him down by saying stuff like, nope, sorry, I like my boyfriend, not looking for anyone else. I then made up an excuse about having to go get ready for meeting friends for dinner. I guess he automatically assumed I meant I was going to go take a shower and said,
"Oh, can I watch you shower?"
I immediately freaked the fuck out and blocked him. The next day at school, he was waiting on my locker. I saw him from way down the hall and just noped the fuck out of there, not bothering to get my books. I went to first period with nothing, still carrying my backpack, which was against the school rules. My teacher immediately pointed this out and gave me detention for both being unprepared and carrying my backpack around. I sat quietly the rest of the class, trying not to cry. After class was over, she pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay. I broke down, telling her everything that had happened. She instantly turned an awful shade of ugly purple and marched down to the principal's office, where she advocated for me and demanded that disciplinary action be taken and that Batman's parents should be contacted. I felt so relieved and apologized profusely to her. For some reason, I felt guilty, like it was my fault for the way that Batman had acted towards me. She sternly put her hands on my shoulders and told me that it was never my fault for being harassed, and that if something like that happened again with anyone, to tell her. Unfortunately, she ended up retiring early after that year when her husband was diagnosed with cancer. I'm not sure what happened after reporting him, but the direct contact with me stopped. There was one incident shortly after where Batman approached one of my girlfriends and demanded her to give me a note from him. She said no, and he angrily kicked her really hard in the shins. Luckily, a teacher saw this and suspended him for a week. Fast forward to my junior year, I'm now the drum major of the marching band, taking a buttload of AP classes and generally enjoying teenage life. I had completely forgotten about Batman and his crap by this point. One day after band practice, I hop on my after-school bus. One of my friends, George, happens to be on the same one. He sits in the two-seater, I sit in the easel across from him in the three-seater. Just before the bus driver is getting ready to leave, Batman gets on the bus. I instantly freak out, climb over to my friend George, and squeeze myself between him and the window. George looks at me with the what the fuck face, and I gesture at Batman. Batman sits down in the three-seater that I had just jumped out of. The rest of the full-size bus was completely empty, yet that's where he wanted to sit. George luckily lives the farthest away, so I'm confident I will be dropped off first, and George will be able to protect me the whole time. Then the bus driver turns around and says, "George, you're the farthest away, so I'll do you first." Great! We drop George off. He reluctantly exits the bus, giving me "I am so sorry" expression the entire time. Batman takes the opportunity to start talking to me. He says that it's his birthday, and I'm awkwardly responding, "Happy birthday to you." He continues on about not having anybody to kiss on his birthday. I responded with something like, I'm sorry, that sucks." He then scooches to the edge of the seat he is on, leans over and places his hand on my knee. I'm wearing short pants at this point, and it's near the end of the year. He starts stroking me in a circular motion with his thumb, and I do everything I can to plaster myself farther against the wall. I pick my feet up and hug my knees to my chest. He moves his hand but continues leaning in close, railing about how maybe he could come over and we could hang out at my house for his birthday. Tell him I'm too busy with homework, and he continues to insist. I look out the window and notice we are driving on a route that is getting dangerously close to my house, and I start to freak out. I do not want him knowing where I live. I suddenly call up to the bus driver and pretend that I accidentally told her the wrong address because I had moved recently. She gets a little annoyed, but agrees to drive me to my new house. We get to my house, and I'm quick to jump up and try to run out of the bus. Batman is quicker, jumps up and blocks the aisle. He tells me that he won't let me leave until he gets his goodbye kiss. I tell him no. He insists again, and I again say no. He then says, okay, fine, how about a birthday hug then? I felt trapped, like I had no other way out. I can't believe the damn bus drivers are noticing any of this happening. I reluctantly agree to give him a birthday hug, if it means I could get off of the bus. I lean in to give him an awkward side hug, and he grabs my face and clasters his lips against mine. I struggle to escape, ripping his hands off of my head. I jump over the streets and run out of the fucking bus and into a backyard, pretending to live there. As soon as the bus is out of sight, I walk all the way home crying. I didn't say anything about this for a week or so. I started receiving unsolicited IMs from him again. I had changed my privacy settings on AIM back to normal eventually after the first incident, to which I had never replied to any of them. Most of them were poorly disguised sexual innuendos. I vividly remember one of his rants being about instruments having sex with each other, and a shitty and creepy-ass attempt to somehow play his interest towards me. Eventually, the girl I was dating at the time noticed I had been acting weird. She eventually squeezed the whole thing out of me and took me straight to the principal's office and complained on my behalf. She made me print out all the IMs I had ever received from him, including the ones from freshman year. Batman was suspended for 2 weeks. After his suspension was over, one of the vice principals had the nerve to ask me if I would agree to a one-on-one with Batman because he wanted to apologize. She empathized that it would be in a safe and controlled environment. I said no, I never wanted to speak with that creep again. She spent the next week pestering me about giving him a second chance and letting him apologize. The last interaction I ever had with him was a nasty handwritten letter that he had shoved in my locker calling me a bitch because I lied to the school, ruined his reputation, and got him in trouble with his parents. I poured ketchup on the note at lunch, rolled it up and shoved it into an empty water bottle and threw it in the trash. Batman, I hope that we never, ever meet again. This is a story I never told anyone, because how the hell do you admit to your family you were almost abducted? This happened to me when I was 11, or, if you will, back in 2005. It was a usual summer day for me. I got up at about noon, went on a bike ride with my brother, and came home and spent most of the remaining daylight in our above-ground pool. We were pretty well off, but by no means rich. So, as I was relaxing for the night, I intended on spending the rest of the night playing video games. I decided to check my Myspace profile really quick, and spend some of the energy on the games down there. As I finished off my Dog Wars energy bar, I've decided I was fit to close the browser and head back downstairs to play some PlayStation when I got a friend request. Somebody named Allie, 13, 3 hours away from nowhere, Kentucky. I clicked the name because I didn't know an Allie, not even an Allison or really any girls who had A's in their names. She was pretty, and 11-year-old me just scoffed like, why would she want to be friends with me? I almost ignored it. Almost. I accepted the request and, with not much else to do, I sent her a message asking a simple question like, should I know you from somewhere? She tells me we haven't met, but that I'm friends with one of her friends, Mike. I checked out her profile, see she and Mike share a lot of common interests, and they are on each other's friends list, so for the next few weeks I talked to her every night for no less than 3 hours usually. We just chat about things like school, music, television, typical kid things. I didn't really think anything about it more than just being Myspace friends, until she said that she liked me. Sort of laughed it off, thinking she just meant like in the way that friends like each other. However, she clarified that she had feelings for me and wanted to meet me in real life. She lived pretty far away, so I didn't see how that would be possible. I knew my parents were not about to take me to some girl who I'd met online. I wouldn't want them to in the first place. They were decent parents and all, but I just never felt like I could talk to them about these kinds of things, so I just sort of shrugged it off. Told her it'd be pretty hard for us to meet because as much as I liked riding my bike, a 3-hour bike ride to a part of a state I'd never even been to before was not something I felt comfortable with. She was very understanding and said that she at least wanted to talk to me on the phone instead of just via MySpace messages. I agreed, but told her never to call my number and to always let me be the one to call her because I didn't want my parents picking up and asking questions. She understood and I called her. The first time I got her dad, he gave me a gruff,
Who is this?
It was weird because I had the phone with me at the computer and told her I was calling. And she had told me she had the phone with her as well. However, I didn't really think anything of it. I told her it was James and that I was looking for Allie. He told me to hold on a sec and there was a rustling sound on the phone. Like somebody trying to make it sound like they were handing it over to somebody. Again, I didn't really think anything of it, and when I heard a high-pitched, hello, I didn't think anything of it. We talked for a few minutes, then she said she had to go because her dad was expecting a call as well. I shrugged it off and told her to just message me and we could talk again later. We kept messaging back and forth for a while, and before I knew it, it was almost the end of the summer, and she was not satisfied having not met in person yet, so she posed an idea. She said there was an end of summer event going on at a lake near my house. She said her family used to go there sometimes, that she could probably talk them into going for the event. My family usually went to the area on 4th of July and stuff, and we had had a nice time there in July. It wasn't too hard for me to convince my folks as well. A few nights later, she lets me know that they had agreed and that she was super excited to finally meet me. She told me she was going to kiss me as soon as I saw her. And I sort of just blushed and tried to make it seem like it wasn't a big deal. Like I was some stud who'd kissed plenty of girls before, but I wasn't. I was totally pumped to finally kiss a girl, and it was only a few nights away. I had a hard time sleeping the next couple of nights, and I stayed up most of the night talking to Allie. We were both excited and couldn't wait to meet. It was very much a magical experience. The night before, I stayed up till 8 a.m. talking to her. So, the day had come, and after an early afternoon bike ride and a short swim, my family loaded us into the car and my dad took the truck so that me and my brother could take our bikes to the lake with us. There were plenty of bike trails, and we always enjoyed riding there. I told my brother I wasn't going to be hanging out with him the whole night, however, and would only ride with him for a little bit before I went to go meet another friend. He wanted to tag along, like most little brothers often do, but I quickly convinced him that he didn't want to hang out with me because most of the kids were mean, and I was only hanging out with them because of the one I liked. He didn't ask any questions after that. About an hour later, the sun was starting to set, and my brother said he was going to meet with our parents. He didn't like riding in the dark. He had a habit of crashing, as it was. So when I ventured off on my own, it was without hindrance. I made my way to the picnic area Allie and I had agreed to meet at, and sat at one of the picnic tables, my bike resting against the side. I sat for a very long time, so long I had started to get worried. I was ready to leave because the fireworks were about to start and Allie hadn't shown up yet. I stood up and jumped down from the picnic table, and just as I did, a rusty old white pickup truck pulled up beside the tables. The man inside reached across the cab to roll down the window and gave me a weird smile, telling me that he was Allie's dad and he was going to take me to her. I started feeling really strange about the situation, so I just gave him a blank stare and said, "What?" He turned off the engine, thinking maybe I couldn't hear him over the sound of it, and climbed out of the truck.
I sent him here to take you to Allie. Hop on in,
he said, opening the passenger door and motioning for me to come in. The truck was full of garbage, and it looked very dirty, and I could smell oil and other things coming from the truck. I gave him a crooked look and told him I wasn't going to get in. As he grabbed me by the arm and pulled me towards the truck, I quickly realized what was going on.
Get in the damn truck.
He barked, squeezing my arm so tightly I thought it was broken. I pulled away, practically giving myself an Indian burn as I told him I was leaving. He came after me, so I did the only thing I could think of to repel a grown man twice my size, and probably 3 times my age. I reared back and kicked him square in the genitals. I didn't bother to wait to see how he handled that blow. I hopped in my bike and pedaled, and with all my might, got back to the other side of the lake where my family was. He didn't follow me, at least I don't think he did. If he did, he might have seen my dad, who was a rather large guy, and definitely not somebody you'd want to fight with after he'd had a few beers. I never saw him again, and when I got home and went to message Allie to tell her what a jerk her dad was, the profile was gone. I saw Mike just before school started, and he said he had no idea who Allie was, and didn't even remember adding her on Myspace. It wasn't until some years later I realized how terribly close I had come to becoming abducted, and God knows what that man wanted to do with me. Allie's dad, or whoever you were, let's not meet again. Hey guys, this is the Dank Spooky here. Just wanted to say thanks for watching. Have a good one, and hopefully I'll see you next time.